Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Quarantine Kitchen. Today I'll be showing you how to make a simple potato gnocchi. Gnocchi are delicate dumplings that can be flavored many ways and be accompanied with a variety of sauces. But today I'll be keeping mine simple and tossing it with my carrot top pistou I made in my last video. We'll start by boiling our potatoes. I use about a tablespoon of salt per potato, and I use enough water to cover the potatoes by about an inch. I'll boil these for about an hour and a half, or until fork tender. Once my potatoes are fully cooked through, I'll carefully bring them onto my cutting board and start to peel them. When I peel them, I like to use a serrated knife as it sort of grips the skin and pulls it off. If the skin of your potatoes doesn't come off easily, they're not quite ready. Put them back into the pot and continue to boil. Once your potatoes are peeled, take a fork and gently scrape the potatoes so that it crumbles into small little pieces. If you have a potato ricer, you could also use that, but I don't have one, so I just use a fork. As you're scraping your potato, make sure to keep going back through little bits and break up any big pieces. You want to break them down to as small as you can without mashing them. It's important not to mash your potatoes because you could overwork them. Overworking your gnocchi can cause the actual dumplings to be mushy and a little bit gummy, which we don't want. We want nice, light, and airy. Once your potatoes are all broken up, spread them out on your cutting board and leave them to cool for about 5 minutes. That way, we don't cook our egg or burn our hands when we're making our dough. Once the potato is cool enough to handle, form it into a ring. This will be our sort of bowl that we're going to be making our pasta dough in. From here, we'll sprinkle just a little bit of salt on the potatoes. We don't want to add too much because they'll get most of their seasoning when we boil them later. Next, we'll add our egg yolks and some of our flour. I don't want to add all the flour at once because it may not need it all. I started with about 1/3 a cup of flour. Now, using a fork, I slowly start to incorporate the eggs and the flour into the potatoes, working to maintain the bowl shape with the potatoes. Next, I used a bench knife to sort of cut the dough into itself. If you don't have one, any regular knife could also be used. I'll continue this process using my hands occasionally and adding a little bit of flour if it seems too wet until it becomes a light, soft, and slightly sticky dough. It should just barely stick to your hands but come together firmly when pressed into a ball. Now that our dough is formed, we'll start to form our dumplings. We'll start by taking a little piece of the dough and very carefully, very gently, working it into about a 2 centimeter in diameter log. When I'm doing this, I'm only using enough pressure to move the log back and forth. As I roll it, I will start to spread my fingers out, which will help for the log to stretch out as it rolls. I always start in the center and move out to the outside edges, trying to ensure that the log is an even diameter its entire length. Once you have your dough rolled out into an even shape, use a knife or a bench knife like I have to cut it into even dumpling-sized shapes. Be careful when you're doing this, as the dough is very fragile. You don't want to smush or tear the dough. Just cut it simply and slowly. I would recommend doing gnocchi one log at a time because you don't want your dough to dry out too much. If you notice that your large dough ball starts to dry out, get a damp paper towel and cover it so that it stays a little bit wet. Once you've cut your gnocchi, place them on a parchment-lined sheet tray, spaced a little bit apart. That way they don't stick to each other. If you'd like a more traditional gnocchi shape, using your thumb, you can press it against the back of a fork gently, creating a slight indent and then rolling it over on itself, giving it its characteristic ridges. I generally don't do this because it takes a lot of time and I am very impatient. Once all your gnocchi are cut, it's time to blanch them. I use the same potato water that I used earlier, I just add more water so that it isn't too salty. Bring your water to a rolling boil, and then, working in batches so the water doesn't cool down too much, place your gnocchi in it and boil until they start to float. Once they float, let them float for about 10 seconds and then remove them from the water. It's important that your water is always at a rolling boil, as water that is too cold will cause your gnocchi to disintegrate. To cook your gnocchi, preheat a pan and add a little bit of oil. When the oil starts to smoke a little bit, add your gnocchi. It's important that the pan and the oil are very hot, otherwise your gnocchi will stick and fall apart. You can also use your gnocchi straight out of the boiling water, as now it is fully cooked. I prefer to sear it to give it a little extra flavor and a nice crunch. Once all your gnocchi are added to the pan, make sure to toss them around frequently and really get a nice even color on all of them. Once your gnocchi are starting to brown on all of their sides, you can start to add your other ingredients. Here, I'm adding just some carrots, and then I'll be adding some frozen peas. I like these because it's a nice, fresh, springy dish. Once my gnocchi are all browned and all my vegetables are hot, I'll begin to make a sauce. I'll start by adding about a tablespoon of butter and then squeezing some lemon juice in there. I probably used about a tablespoon of lemon juice. Now I'm going to add some of my pistou. This is the carrot top pistou that I made in the last video. From here, I'm just going to toss all my ingredients, really mixing well. At this point, we don't really want to cook anything anymore. We just want to warm our pistou through and just melt the butter. That way it coats all the ingredients in the pan. If we cook this too long, the pistou could turn brown and the butter can break, causing your sauce to be a little extra oily.